Center for Local Government and went in with 3 other municipalities. And got a real good price.
Yeah. The one thing I would comment, the way this reads, you've already got a contract, and you're gonna have some modification that's going to be above the statutory 25,000, assuming that's it. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be competitively bid, because I can see some real mischief there.
Well, the problem is, if you, that's only was because if you ran into a cost overrun.
That's
So,
usually when it happens, and
yeah.
that's when I
Yeah, but-
really wonder if you shouldn't.
Well, you
Look
would
at it
have a real
twice.
problem, though, if you did it, because what if another contractor comes in and gets it, and that's more of a conflict with the existing contractor doing the work. So, if you're putting this addition in, and you find out after the bidding goes through, and there's always contingencies for when you find an issue, and if this turned out they're digging half the basement and there's a solid rock in there, and they have to spend an additional $20,000 to get that rock out to finish the job, you wouldn't wanna go out and hire another contractor that would come in with, you know, doing the same work as the existing contractor. So it's in there to allow for overruns. And it's also, like on road work, the engineer does an estimate, but it's usually based upon price per ton or unit price type of bidding. And you might be resurfacing a road. If you've got a bad spot in it, then they may end up having to use thicker asphalt or heavier asphalt, and runs into an overcost in there. It doesn't happen very often, and actually, when I was around, we never had a contract that was, you know, more than a few $1,000s at the most, you know, $4,000 or $5,000 over what went out for bid. Because the engineer is generally pretty close in meeting that unit price thing. But, you know, it was still a guess out on some issues. So I think, you know, that's just why it's in there. But it would complicate issues if you ended up rebidding it.
Well, I think perhaps we might consider some kind of a bar on it, or not a bar, but at least a limitation.
A cap
somewhere.
on how much the overflow
Yeah, how much,
could be
yeah.
or something.
Some
And
limit on what the
there may be something in some of the
Say
more
it should
recent where they're saying not more than 10% or something.
If
Something
it
like
should
that,
exceed
yeah.
10% of the original contract, or something like that, where everyone's on notice, hey, you know,
Yeah.
we're talking something about something big, not
Yeah.
something.
Right. Something big.
And then there are some contracts that when you have an emergency, that the council can bypass competitive bidding in a case of an emergency.
An emergency, yeah.
And we have bought police cars in the past when a cruiser was crashed by emergency, although in recent years now, all the police, we're doing more and more buying through state competitive bidding. And so we don't do a lot of going out for bids, because you don't have to go out for bids if you use the state, or state law has it set up now, the state has a bid for a dump truck. But if you can find a dealer that will sell you that same dump truck for the price of the state bid or less, you can buy it from that dealer without going through competitive bidding.
Isn't section D really talking about somebody lowballing the work to get
I
the
think that's the
contract?
point.
So if a percentage limit was somehow established, that would address that.
Not that we ever have any federal contractors that do that.
Well, I'm thinking that's what this, I'm thinking that's your concern much.
Does this
Well, we've
cover-
had some contractors come in with an extremely low bid. All the curbing work that was done by Baker Concrete was really a low bid. I mean, they did the road curbing torn out and put back in. I think it was like $9 a foot. And the next lowest bid was 12 or something like that. And by golly, we didn't pay a dime more than $9.75 a foot.
And did you get normal life out of it?
Yeah, it's been in there for 12 years now.
Right, that's the same problem with
Right
that,
down
it's
your
like your
street.
in-house, you know, sometimes the lowest bid isn't the best person
Yeah,
for the
Mhm.
job too.
Or the best quality materials.
Yeah,
but
It's
Baker was, we hit them at a time when things were slow, and they're a big contractor.
they are, yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And if
they
you
got
don't work for
equipment
them-
sitting there on a lot ready to use,
Yeah.
so,
So
Does-
right after they got our job, they got Paul Brown Stadium's concrete, you know.
Does this cover us in the event of like a weather emergency if we had to deal with having, thinking back to the windstorm and
That
needing,
big day.
I mean,
Tornadoes or.
yes, like something like a tornado coming
Catastrophic.
through and catastrophic, I mean, this covers us that we don't have to
Right,
spend
right.
time
Doing bidding.
doing
Yeah,
paperwork and
Right.
bidding and can get somebody
Right.
in here to take care of our community.
Yeah,
Okay. That's an emergency,
yeah.
okay.
I had a question when I read this under B, where it says, next to the last line of B, 2 or more than 4 consecutive weeks in a newspaper determined by the council. Well, are there special tabloids or newspapers that contractors look at, or are they all moving to electronic? You know, I'm-
Well, it's, the Inquirer and the newspaper lobbyists are fighting to keep that from happening, but, we post it, we advertise in the Inquirer,
Mhm,
and those ads are very expensive,
mhm.
but the state law pretty much mandates us to advertise in there. And so they get it, but also, I forget the name of the Contractors Association, or some sort of group that publishes all bids, public and private bids. Maybe you,
Yes, there is
so
some
we-
kind of a paper,
yeah, we always would send out to those people too,
Mhm.
so that all the contractors get it.
Mhm,
And generally, they all watch it quite closely.
mhm.
On all the public works jobs, I mean, we usually have a half a dozen. I think when we did that curbing job, you know, we may have had 10 companies apply.
Mhm.
So you'll get a lot of bids from in the public sector
Mhm.
construction area.
Conversely, if nobody reads that week, you might only have one bidder and be locked into it.
We don't always have to accept that one bidder, though.
Well, I guess I'm wondering whether, where I work, we want 3 bids, where it's major capital, and that's over 150,000 on any one project. So until we have 3 bids, it doesn't move through the approval process.
Mhm.
unless
Now-
you get, like, for example, remember we need some fire hydrants last year, and apparently there's only 1 or 2 manufacturers in the United States. You're not gonna get 2 or 3 bids, you're
Yeah.
likely to get 1.
Well, even
In
with
that
waste
case,
collection
yeah.
now, it's basically Rumpke.
Right,
And,
with the garbage too,
um,
yeah.
Shoot, I forget what the other, CSI or something.
Mhm.
There's another one, but they hardly bid at times. So when we went in with the joint bid for the other municipalities, we did have 2 bids for garbage collection. But it used to be there were 3 or 4 people that bid on garbage, and then it got so that there's
Right,
not many
nobody's
companies left doing garbage. But hardly ever, I know Yvonne, when she first came in, did the tree removal bids, and only 1 company bid, and she had it rebid, and she still only had 1 company bid.
So what you're really saying is in the charter, which is a broad document,
Yeah.
we don't have to get that specific.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nick?
I just finished. Ready to go around again?
Yeah.
Boy,
5.09.
I have too much fun. Central purchasing. The manager shall act as purchasing agent for the municipality. Council may provide by ordinance a procedure for the making of emergency purchases by officers and employees of the municipality other than the purchasing agent. The Director of Finance shall issue checks for payment. The manager may designate an administrative officer or employee of the municipality to act as a purchasing agent to award and execute such contracts, orders, and agreements on behalf of the municipality as the manager is authorized to award and execute pursuant to the provisions of Section B hereof.
Okay, central purchasing and a purchasing agent, defined. The manager is the purchasing agent, but then gives alternatives of who else can purchase and how that operates. Any questions or concerns about it?
Seems almost superfluous, because we have a finance director. That would be the logical person to do all this. Rather than
Well,
separate
No,
persons.
not
segregation of duties would say you don't want the finance guy deciding
Where to
not
spend the
only
money.
who they're paying, but who it's going to.
Right, right.
Should be
Yeah.
somebody else doing it.
Mhm.
Although when the manager is designated as chief contracting.
I'd
just
say
say-
you got a
It's
combination.
redundant, saying central purchasing as well as.
You don't really have a separation when you have the one person in charge anyway.
Yeah, except the finance director should be a check and balance,
Mhm, mhm.
not the manager.
Mhm.
And the man, whoever's buying something has to go get a purchase order before they purchase it from the finance director. And then when it comes in, the bill comes in, the finance director pays it. And as long as she's got the purchase order. Although there are some where you issue a blanket purchase order, so.
So the manager is not acting as the purchasing agent?
Yeah,
Author-
well.
Authorizes purchasing.
Yeah, the police chief can buy also, but the manager signs off on, the finance director and the manager signs off on the purchase order. I think that's how it's still done.
Mhm.
So if the police chief wanted to buy something, he needed my approval, but he could go buy it. So
Well,
it's
and
a-
Mike Castor operates under
Castor.
the same thing.
And, yeah, the service department guys would run to Lowe's or something, so some of those places, there are blanket purchase orders where they're allowed to pick up supplies or what have you.
Okay,
Rakes.
yeah. Let's move on to.
Section 5.1.
So we're gonna call that one okay?
Yeah.
Section 5.10, engineer. An engineer may be appointed or contracted with by the manager with the consent of council. The engineer must be a registered engineer licensed to practice in the state of Ohio. Council shall establish the compensation of the engineer by ordinance. The engineer may be removed by the manager with the consent of council. The engineer shall, on request, prepare specifications and drawings for material, equipment, and any other items which the municipality is concerned with procuring. The engineer shall review drawings as approved. The manager shall have the right to employ or contract with additional engineering personnel or services.
Any concerns about that?
We have a part-time engineer, or a
Usually-
separate contractor.
We usually hire an engineering firm. That's traditionally how we've done
Mhm.
contract.
Mhm.
And then they get paid
Per job.
per job.
Okay.
So we're requiring the engineer to approve his own drawings? The one sentence stuck.
Right, yeah.
The engineer shall review drawings as approved, and 2 sentences higher, they're preparing specifications and drawings.
I thought, when I read engineer shall review drawings,
As approved.
I
means-
thought it was like, if somebody was putting an addition on their house, the engineer is the one reviewing and approving them, but that doesn't read that way, right?
But that's kind of what it references.
Yeah, but and the engineer doesn't approve, or doesn't look at house drawings, he's only looking at, say, the engineering drawings for this building, or the engineering drawings for a street rebuild. So they have a separate, that you have to use a person that's certified as a chief building official to do house drawings and things sort of.
So like the building inspector is a whole different,
And actually, the chief building official has to approve the drawings on this building too, but they don't on street work. So you just have a certified engineer to stamp the drawings for your road work, dams, what have you.
So the phrase, "the engineer shall review drawings as approved."
Yeah, what does that mean? As
I
a,
don't know.
I'm still
does
stuck
it sound
on
like
that.
they've already been looked over?
Yeah.
And then, like, then you're just looking them over again as of, like they've been approved, as approved. Review drawings as approved.
Maybe
okay.
ask
I
Jeff
don't know what that means.
Okay.
to interpret that.
The only time you'd have a problem is the engineer designs something that falls apart while you're, like a garage downtown says.
Yeah.
oh, I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
I jumped ahead. My issue was covered.
Sorry, you gotta go back.
We'll have a second chance at it.
Yeah.
so.
We're moving
Okay.
it there.
All right, Trish,
Nope.
Oh,
Okay,
Heidi?
and I'll volunteer to read the,
Next two.
the 512 also.
Yeah.
You get a glass of water or anything?
I do. Section 511, police and fire protection. Council shall provide for police and fire protection adequate to meet the needs of the municipality. Section 512, police department. The operating rules and procedures of the police department shall be established by the manager with the advice of the police chief and the consent of council. The police department shall be under the direction of the chief of police, who shall be the department head and who shall report to the manager for administrative purposes. Disciplinary action shall be taken by the police chief with the right of appeal to the department, including, with the right of appeal to the manager. The appointment, promotion, and removal of members of the police department, including the police chief, shall be made by the manager in accordance with the rules provided by council and this charter, or upon the achievement of city status in accordance with the provisions of Article, what is that?
Nine.
Thereafter, and rules promulgated thereunder.
And we have this
Yeah.
comment that he left for us.
Yes.
So, do you want me to just mark that, refer?
Is that
to
the one he
Chief
was
Doyle's
talking
draft
about? Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Come back to?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you read that last one?
That was mine.
Oh.
Building inspector. The manager may provide for a building inspector adequate to meet the needs of the municipality.
And that's where they use another firm
That
now
sounds
versus an
pretty-
individual.
Yeah.
We outsource that.
Are we checking off then, 5.11 is okay and 5.13 is
Yeah.
okay?
Since we're using another individual for another firm, you might want to clarify it in the charter.
Well, it's clarified by having, having an engineer and the building inspector.
I'm just worried about the building inspector.
Well, I think, why are you worried about them?
Well, it could be read either as building inspector, i.e. a person, a living person, or we have a firm doing it now, which is a corporation,
Right.
which is also considered in some respects a person also, so. But
Well, just as adequate to meet the needs of the municipality.
that I have no problem.
So, I mean,
That language I have no
it
problem.
could be either way, yeah.
Could I ask on a different point, the phrase "upon achievement of city status"?
We were a city at one time,
Right.
Well,
and
Yeah.
would be if we went up over
5,000.
5,000 citizens, we'd become automatically a city.
And he,
that language is in there for the event of getting over 5,000.
And that's why he reworded it on his draft, that in the event that the village would achieve city status, that the, yeah, Article 9 of this charter would become effective. Cause he thought
Because
it was
collective bargaining
redundant.
takes place, and you have to have a civil service board if you're a city.
Well, I was just thinking, unless the village is actively pursuing achievement of city status,
It's gonna happen by census,
Yeah.
it just happens
It
by
happens.
census.
by law.
So we were a city for 20 years and then became a village. When all the people had all those young babies and all went off and moved out of town.
And here we go.
Yeah.
What do we now, about 3,500, 4,000?
Probably.
Under 4,000.
It was 36 at the last election.
Yeah, it's under,
Yeah.
I think it's around 3,500.
Okay.
But you can't believe the census either. There we are. I don't know. They couldn't count how many living units were in Greenhills, so they missed that by 50 almost every year.
So we finish up next, on Thursday?
I thought we
Let's
were
do
gonna do
6.
six.
Let's do
Oh,
one
we're
more.
going on?
We're 5 and 6, girl.
6 is short, we'll be okay. It's only 2
Alright.
pages.
We're doing good.
Article 6, boards and commissions, 6.01. Effective charter action on pre-existing boards and commissions. All official opinions, rulings, findings, decisions, and other prior action of pre-existing boards, commissions, and/or committees shall remain in effect, unimpaired, and in full force until changed, modified, rescinded, or repealed, according to this charter's provision, by any new boards, commissions, and/or committees, or until superseded by council action.
Purpose?
Cover what
Cover
we've
the-
already done.
Yeah. It protects it.
It's a bucket list.
Well, it kind of protects what was already done, Okay. Thad, planning commission.
6.02, Planning Commission. A planning commission consisting of 5 members shall be established. The members shall be the mayor, 1 council member, and 3 citizens of municipality appointed by the mayor with the approval of council. The planning commission may have the powers confronted by the Ohio Revised Code, this charter, and by ordinance of council. The members shall have terms of 6 years on a staggered basis. The planning commission shall be a continuing body. The planning commission shall be responsible for maintaining a master plan and the planning and advising of municipal development and redevelopment and other duties assigned by council. The planning commission shall adopt its own rules of procedure.
I had that marked for some reason.
Well,
So
let's-
his-
Come up.
Yvonne was gonna wanna include the historic commission.
Historic
Ah, okay.
restoration
I just-
and
okay.
planning
yeah,
commission.
it was a question as to whether
Historic,
we
okay.
wanted to change that or
Okay.
not.
I don't know if we need effectively the mayor and a council member. I think there should be at least 1 member of council on the committee, but I don't think you need the mayor. That can,
That was a carryover from the state law,
Well, the state law said he had to be part of it, or?
when we were statutory. And so they, at the time, the charter commission wanted to keep it that way.
I don't think we need a mayor and a council member. I think we need at least 1 council member on it. I think having a mayor and a council member makes it kinda awkward, because we've seen what's happened in the last planning commission and the zoning mess we're in right now. And, I just think 1 council member would have been adequate, or a mayor, but not both, because I think a lot of conflicts would have been resolved.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I would maybe wanna look at that.
That may be personalities rather than, having to do with
Could be.
number of representatives and so on.
Could be, but if you can try to adjust it by having just 1 instead of 2.
Is this a compensated position?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
So we could add 2 members, make it 7?
Yeah, we could do that.
Because, my first thought was if charter review by charter is 7, why wouldn't the planning commission have 7 members?
No argument why it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And
I like
the only reasoning was that when we were statutory, we had 5 based upon the state statute, and so they just kept it that way. Same way with the zoning board.
I'm well familiar
Yeah.
with, we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying that when they were doing the charter, they just said, why not? That's what we've been doing.
Right, didn't
so
wanna change from what the state
there wasn't
law
a big
was.
reason for it.
Yeah,
Some things we varied from the state law, some
Yeah.
things we
Yeah.
fairly.
I would agree, I think 7 members would probably be better than what we've got now.
That would address your.
Because right now, you've got the mayor and a city council member, so.
You've
you only-
already got to the people.
2 out of the 3 you need to force something through, and I don't think that's really an independent body.
And the Recreation Commission, they have the 7, that's a
Mhm.
7-member
Mhm.
also.
Okay.
So we probably
Okay.
locked in the answer on the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yeah, all right.
Right, yeah, same way on that, it's
Okay.
just following statute.
I guess I'm up, right? Board of
Mhm.
Zoning,
Yep.
I'm gonna do the next 2, since they're awfully similar. Section 6.03, Board of Zoning Appeals. A Board of Zoning Appeals consisting of 5 members shall be established. The members shall be 2 members of the Planning Commission elected by the Planning Commission, with the remaining 3 members appointed by the mayor with approval of council. The members shall have terms of 3 years. The board shall be a continuing body, shall adopt its own rules of procedure, and shall have the powers conferred upon it by council ordinances. Section 6.04, Recreation Commission. A Recreation Commission consisting of 7 members shall be established according to council ordinances. The Recreation Commission shall have the powers conferred upon it by general law and by council ordinances. This commission shall serve as an advisory board to council regarding the recreation needs of the municipality. The Recreation Commission shall be a continuing body. Okay. So we've got 2 more there.
Yeah, I think the same argument would be made for this, make it a 7-member board, because right now, you've got, and it really disturbs me, you've got 2 members from the planning commission on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and you've really pretty much loaded the dice. They only need 1 more vote, and you can end up with a rather arbitrary decision. It's supposed to be an independent body, and you have people going there to get an independent review of a problem for a zoning variance or something of that nature because of a hardship. And you've got personalities involved to begin with. I really would think that when you have 2 members of 1 board forming almost a majority, they only need to pull in 1 more to make it a majority. It's kind of loads the dice.
Just to clarify, so the Board of Zoning Appeals, is that supposed to be the check and balance to the Planning Commission? Or the
Not
2 are not
necessarily.
intertwined?
Just different.
If something a family wants to do, one of the perfect examples is similar to yours. They had a retarded child and they owned property, and some of their property included the green belt.
Okay.
They wanted to put a fence around all of their property. The green belt laws don't permit
A fence.
closing off a fence, and we made an exception for this family because
They were
this
protecting their
child,
child,
they
right.
needed, and it's really not hard work. You talk to this neighbor, oh, we don't care at all, we like this neighbor, they don't care. And so you just say yes.
And
no.
who says yes, the Board of
The
Zoning
board,
Appeals?
if there, no, they say, no, we're not going to.
So the Board of Zoning Appeals, essentially, if my home backed up to Sharon Road and I have a child that's at risk for walking on the Sharon Road,
It's gotta have a good, an abnormal risk.
but my example is that that's who if I wasn't allowed to put a fence up, that's who I would go
You
to.
would go
appeal.
To appeal.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Right,
yes.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
And it would be if there was a variance. It's a variance of the existing ordinances that are part of the zoning.
Okay, okay.
And that could be personal, because you have at least 1 person on the planning commission that I could see that really has issues with fences, and at least appears to me to have one. And
Well, that person may not be on the zoning board.
Well, we don't
I've got
know.
it with Springdale, somebody wants to put a sunroom onto their unit. And, you know, they've got, you can't have a permanent structure within so many feet of the lot line. And we're going, there's nothing behind us, so what's the issue?
Mhm.
But I get to go to the Springdale zoning thing on the 20th. Somebody wants to add 2 feet more than
Oh
their
my
rules allow.
gosh.
You know, we're getting 2 feet closer to the lot line.
And that's the kind of thing this zoning.
And we don't do
And
that.
we get into that here, you know, somebody did an addition down on Damon Road,
Well,
a couple years ago.
So if the planning commission though are the people that make the plans, for example.
Well, council approves the zoning ordinances.
Okay,
But it has to be approved by the planning commission, and then council has to
so
approve.
the planning commission recommends to council.
Right.
Council then would approve it. Then, in your example of that situation with that family, they then go to the Board of Zoning Appeals
To seek a variance.
to
Right.
seek a variance, which then has to go back to council.
No.
No, they
No.
then
It
can
stops
say,
right there.
Yeah.
where the buck stops here, we're saying this is okay. Got it.
So, you know, if you can go in, if you're wanting to do something, building work, you can go in and meet with the planning commission, and they can clarify the fact that it doesn't meet the zoning. They interpret what the zoning is for you,
Okay,
and then you can file your variance.
Mhm.
I think we ought to mark it down, and maybe we might wanna increase it to 7. At least
I'm-
recommend
I'm
increase.
thinking we should be fairly consistent.
Make them all 7.
It's either that or knock out one of the
See how many
planning commission
Springdale-
members.
See how many Springdale has when you go.
Oh, it's a full gauntlet.